Our guest today is a man who has spent over 30 years proving that while golf may be a game of feel, it is strictly governed by the laws of physics. If you've ever marveled at the precision of a modern driver or wondered how the world's top manufacturers validate their biggest breakthroughs, you've seen his handiwork. As the founder of Golf Laboratories, he's the architect behind the industry's gold standard for independent testing. He didn't just build a better robot, he built the Judge, the most sophisticated swing duplicator in existence. From testing the limits of equipment for the USGA to providing the data that shapes how millions of us play the game, he is the undisputed authority on the science of the swing. Please welcome the man who knows exactly what happens at the moment of impact, Gene Parente.
Well, good seeing you again. I saw you down. Mike Boyle introduced us down at the PGA show, so I want to thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
Mike told me that you have the best stories in golf, and I was I was on the phone today with John Dunnigan, who you might know. He's a really great teacher out here on the East Coast, and he seems to know everybody. He said, "Hey, what are you doing around 4 o'clock? I need a fitting." I said, "I'm doing a podcast with Gene Parente," and he went, "You got Gene?" He's like, "I don't even know Gene that well." He's like, "That's awesome." So he's looking forward to it, and so everybody seems to know you, Gene. So could you tell me a little bit about how you got started in golf and tell your story a little bit for us?
So let's just say this before I get started. Bear with me. My stories aren't short, nor are they concise. So, but I promise they do have a point somewhere along the line. So the best place to start is actually 17, the grandstands at 17 at Pebble Beach. My father, in the last years of his life, my brother and I would bring him up to Pebble Beach, and he was born in Northern California. My brother and I were born in Northern California. And I was sitting there one day in the grandstands, and my dad, I'll tell the story, worked in the golf industry, and he turned to me and he said, "Do you know how you got in the golf industry?" And I looked at him and I said, "Through you." And he said, "No, it wasn't directly through me." And I said, "Well, how did I get in the golf industry?" And he said, "Wino George." And I said, "Who the hell is Wino George?" So you got to go back even farther. My grandfather was an immigrant from Italy, came over from New York. They couldn't make it in New York. They ended up in San Jose. My grandfather worked his entire life in a cannery in San Jose. My dad was a high school golfer. When he graduated high school, he ended up in the same cannery. Hated it. Couldn't stand it. Didn't want to be working in the cannery. Was getting ready to leave. And one day he's standing next to this. My dad's like 18 years old, standing next to this guy named Wino George. Wino George was a caddy at Almaden who during the winter months would work in the cannery to, because there were no loops to be had. So never said a word to my dad in the cannery. Turns to him one day and said, "You're a golfer, right?" And my dad said, "Yeah." And he said, "Put on your best pair of slacks. I've got you a job interview tomorrow at Almaden." My dad shows up. This is like 1957, 58, gets the job, becomes an assistant golf pro. For the next 10 years, his job, he had a job at the country club, but his main job on Mondays was to drive members down from San Jose and play Pebble, Spyglass, and occasionally Cypress. This shows you a little difference. And the reason they did it is they wanted to keep the caddies employed in the 60s. So my father, 10 years assistant pro up in the San Jose area, 1970, his best friend, Tony Manzoni, gets a job down in Palm Springs. Actually, this is to show you how crazy golf was back then, working for Ken Venturi, who ran the club shop or the pro shop at Mission Hills Country Club. This is a U.S. Open winner, but he still had to run a pro shop because that's how much money there was in golf back then. So my dad gets this call from Tony and he goes, "You've got to come down. You've got to come and see Palm Springs. It's amazing." My dad flies down, falls in love with it, gets offered a job as a head pro of this course, Whitewater Country Club. which turned out was backed by the mob. And my dad became like golf pro to the mob, and Mayor Daley used to come. And my childhood was just filled with all kinds of interesting stories, but that's for another time and place. He ends up being a head pro for about 5 years at the course, or 7 years. I end up being a cart kid, working, doing everything. I finally graduate, move off to go to college. My dad starts a company called Hickory Stick USA, this tiny little golf club company that they had a hickory dowel with a steel shaft in the middle. He's got like 3 or 4 employees. They moved the company down to Temecula. It's just this small little company. And one day there's a cold call. My dad answers, and this guy named Ely Calloway has just sold his winery and wants to invest in a golf club company. The company becomes Callaway Hickory Stick, and then it becomes Callaway Golf. My dad becomes the first president of Callaway Golf. I, meanwhile, am off at UCLA. I'm done. I don't want anything to do with golf. I want to be a diplomat. That's my goal. And so I'm like studying foreign policy and things like that. I graduate from college. I moved down to San Diego to take a year off to kind of just, prepare for the graduate school exams. My dad comes to me and says, "Hey, you're going to need a job. I've got an idea for this company to test golf equipment." I said, "Sure, I'll do that for 6 months." We bought a machine. It wasn't a robot. It was a machine powered by a garage door spring from Titleist that they were going to throw away for $100. I get this like death contraption. It was amazingly accurate, but after it hit a golf ball, it spun around like a flywheel and you had to catch it. And I started this business at 23, dumb as a box of rocks. I mean, just dumb. You're dumb anyways at 23. I was really dumb because I thought I knew about golf. I didn't. I knew nothing about running a small business, and I knew less than nothing about the physics of golf. But what I lucked out on was it was right at the end of the Cold War, and there was all this new technology being infused into the golf industry. This is 1990, and everybody suddenly needed testing. Now, just to put it in perspective, to give you an idea, the major companies at the time were Wilson, Spalding, McGregor, and Titleist. Titleist is the only one still kind of major. Callaway was a $3 million a year company, and Cobra was a $5 million a year. It was a cottage little industry back then. So I started with this garage door spring, started testing. Callaway and Cobra and TaylorMade were some of my first clients. And a couple years in, I decided to develop my own robot, which was another foolish endeavor, looking back on it. But I designed this machine. I've sold 55 worldwide, been in business for 36 years, and have kind of had a front seat at all of the major product launches over the last 36 years and seeing the, kind of development and maturation of this industry. And it's been wild. It's been really, really wild. And it's been a fun ride.
Oh my God. What a wild opening. So I don't even know where to start with that. There's so much I want to hear about. I want to hear about the garage door spring. I heard that there's a story that was like a death trap. Like this thing was like super sketchy. Also, I don't want to waste too much time on that either, but what do you know now? And I'm sure you know a lot, but what do you know now that you wish you would have known then? What's the most important if you had to pick?
Oh, that's, it's really interesting. I look back on it, to be honest, like the first 4 or 5 years, I would love, unfortunately, this was even like pre-computers. So a lot of this was handwritten, and, this data didn't really, and it wouldn't have helped anyways, because it was also pre-launch monitors. But I'd just be curious to look at this data and find out if it was worth a damn or not, because I'm curious. I'm kind of fascinated now, like how I stayed in business. And one of the things that I learned that I think was really important is I didn't know a lot. I didn't have any experience, but I was willing to throw a lot of hours at something. And so if you're willing to throw a lot of hours at something, you can make up for a lot of your deficiencies. And so that's what I think I was most, that I benefited from the most. If there was one thing that I probably would have liked, was maybe to have someone more of a mentor in the space. Like my dad was great, but he was off on his thing, but someone who was like a golf physicist. So I had to learn the physics of golf. And you're talking about someone who didn't take a math class in college. I mean, I had zero interest in going that way. And suddenly I'm discussing all of these complex physics of collision dynamics between a golf club and a golf ball. And it was a square peg in a round hole. Fortunately, I'm a visual learner, and I created this amazing piece of test equipment. I often say I'm not the brightest guy in the world, but I created this piece of test equipment that if I want to know what something's doing, I just test it and go, okay, what happens when the face is 2 degrees open, you hit it out on the toe? Oh, this is what happens. What happens when you hit it on the lower part of the face versus the upper part of the face? Oh, this is what happened. So through trial and error and learning, I've developed quite an understanding of the physics of golf that I simply did not have coming in.
So I want to ask one more question before I know Evan has some stuff to ask you. My last question for you for a minute is, I do a lot of club fitting, and I understand the physics of golf to some degree, I would hope by now, but obviously I don't know probably as much as you do. When an amateur is testing a driver, and maybe this person has a specific miss, low toe, low heel, high toe, high heel. Are there clubs that you've tested before that you would look at it and go, this driver would be so much better for you because you hit it low toe or low heel than another club?
Absolutely. So we do what we call 9-point testing. We hit in the geometric center of the face, 3/4 of an inch towards the toe, 3/4 of an inch towards the heel, 1/2 inch high center, 3/4 inch toe, 3/4 inch heel, 1/2 inch low center, 3/4 inch toe, 3/4 inch heel. That gives us about 90% of the surface area of the club. Keep an eye out, because your question is very relevant. We are right now in the pre-release state for our Golf Digest 2026 drivers, in which we will answer questions like that. If you have a high toe miss, which is the best 2026 product for you versus a low heel miss? So we will be absolutely looking at that. I often say that the critical aspects for me to understand performance of a golf club, I need to know club head velocity, number 1, angle of attack, number 2, path, number 3, face angle at impact, number 4, and impact position, number 5. You can give me those 5 points, I have a real clear idea where the golf ball is going to go. And then I can look at this test data that I have of all of these golf clubs and direct as to which club would give the best performance characteristics based upon your swing signature.
And so would you say it's not necessarily just the one that's the highest in moment of inertia?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. It is, man, golf's complicated, and I know that's about as Captain Obvious of a statement as you can get, but it's like so many factors come in. As I said, are you swinging up on the ball? Are you swinging down on the ball? Is your face open? Is your face closed? Where are you making impact? There's so many critical factors that come into that. MOI is one factor, but it is not the be all and the end all factor.
So that being said, that's a perfect little segue to part B. And there are moments where you get I shouldn't say a high handicapper, but a higher handicapper who hits an LS driver better, where the CG's forward, it's not quite as forgiving, but they hit it much better than something like, a driver that's 10K. Is that fair to say that there are situations you can fit, a 10 or a 12 handicapper into or maybe even like an 18 handicap into a low spin head?
100%. We found last year, and we're seeing the trend again this year, that some of the LS products are just as forgiving as the high MOI products, and they have low spin characteristics. As you said, golfers that hit down on it have a tendency of spinning it more. And so you're reducing spin, which is going to equate to more distance. And then you're also not losing much in the forgiveness factor. I think the major kind of direction for golfers, especially mid to high handicap golfers, is don't be afraid of loft. Get rid of this macho nonsense that you've got to be teeing it up with a 9 degree. Look at a 10.5 or a 12. 12 used to be a rare loft. Now it's really common.
I play an 11.5 and I swing like 113.
Yeah, exactly. And let me tell you something, little teaser. You're really going to be doing that in the 2026 products. They're all very low launching, low spinning. But I see a day not too far off when you're not going to have a draw product, you're not going to have an LS product, you're going to have a product designed specifically for your launch conditions. And you're going to look at that and you're going to say, okay, let's set up this LS driver with 1 to 2 degrees close. And guess what? That's a draw base, low spin, forgiving golf club for someone who needs exactly that comes over the top. And that might be in a 10.5 to help get the ball into the air. So this categorization of golf clubs exists for a reason, for marketing purposes mostly, and a little bit in regard to help. But with the adjustability of the sleeves and the number of different products that are available, it to your point, that you don't need to just be in a Max or a Max D. A Max D, for example, those usually are the highest spinning out of any of the clubs that are offered. So if you're at 3,200 spin rate, because you're coming over the top and you've got that face wide open, Max D might get you up to 36, whereas an LS might get you down to 28. That's a pretty big gap as far as distance is concerned.
So how as fitters do we do right by the customer? If I'm not fitting for a specific product and I have that maybe 15 to 18 handicap who's a little over the top and maybe a little steep, who hits it maybe out on the heel and maybe a little low on the face, how do we do right by them?
So really good question. Number one, find a loft up solution that allows them to get launch while maintaining or minimizing spin. And then, as you alluded to, don't be afraid of the LS products, and don't be afraid of the LS products while adjusting the sleeve. In other words, if the sleeve adjustability allows you to close that face, or more importantly, change the lie angle to a little bit more upright with that loft and with that lower spin, that will help with the left direction. And that left direction, to be honest with you, is probably going to be aided more by lowering the spin and getting them distance than kind of a Max D product.
How important do you think start direction is to pay attention to in a fitting if we can measure start direct or launch direction?
Launch direction is critical as long as you are able to get spin axis with it. If you don't get spin axis with it, it's you've got issues, because without spin axis, it can show it as a pull or a push, on that line. You really need to get an accurate spin axis measurement to determine, is the player pulling or pushing it, or is it just that start direction? They're starting 3 degrees left, but they have 600 RPM of positive side spin or a high spin axis. So you need both. One without the other just gives you part of the equation.
That's great. Yeah, I'm gonna bring it back a little bit here. So, Gene, I'm not being as technical as James here, but so you were just talking about how you don't have like a physics background, and that's so interesting to me, because you're coming to an industry where there's tons of math in the industry, or for people that you work with. How, as quote unquote, I'll say an outsider, if you will, coming in, is there anything that you've been able to bring as like a new perspective or findings in your work?
It's a really good question. And to be honest, I think this is one of my strengths, is the fact that, as you can tell from a short time that we've had together, talking is not one of my issues. And but what I've learned and what I have I found is one of my strengths is I can take complicated concepts and communicate those clearly, especially to golfers. Engineers are really fascinating. They've become my tribe because I've been working with them for 36 years. But engineers are really interesting. Most engineers, smartest people in the room. The problem is they can't communicate that they're the smartest person in the room. And so you get this like disconnect. They're incredibly intelligent, but they have an expectation that you have the same amount of knowledge. Trust me, this was the first 10 years of my life in this business. I felt like I was treading water with an anvil wrapped around my neck, trying to figure it all out. But once I figured it out and understood it, the other thing I've learned, which I was too embarrassed to do when I was younger, which I, kind of back to what would you have done differently? I just simply ask now when I don't understand something, to have it explained. But what I've been able to do and what I've been able to do through all of the different media outlets that I've worked with is communicate these complicated concepts of physics, of performance, of club head design in a way that's relative to the average golfer. And one of the most important things that I've learned over the years is to try to step back and see the forest through the trees. We get so geeked out on stuff, and we fail to realize that most people have no idea if they have a graphite or steel shaft, much less their loft. We tend to focus on the sickos in this industry, which I love, and they're my people. But the majority of golfers just want to go out and drink a 6-pack with their buddies and have a good time. And it's and they don't even have a handicap. And it's so critical to be able to communicate messages to them, as well as the person that's taking lessons, that's buying 2 to 3 drivers a year, inhaling all the media on all these things. So it's important to kind of have universal messages as far as how things work, what the performance characteristics are, because most people don't have a physics degree nor want one. They just want to go out and play golf and have fun. And so if you can communicate why this is worth an upgrade, or why it's worth spending money, and what they're playing now, what kind of benefit they're going to get out of it. I often say in this industry, there are a couple of quotes. One, this was told to me by Dick Ruggie, who was the former head of the USGA. He said, the chairman of Revlon once said to his sales force, this is back in the 60s, kind of the Mad Men era. He said, "Gentlemen, we don't sell lipstick, we sell hope." And that's the golf industry right there. And it's like, just be realistic about, what you're doing. But I'll add an addendum to that. What we try to sell is minimizing buyer's remorse. They're not saying, they're going, "Man, did I just get burned for that? Did I just, spend too much money on something that's not going to work for me?" And so if you can work with them along in the process, that gives them that hope or that faith that when they put a bad swing on it for the first time, it's them, not the club, you've done your job.
Wow. That's great.
I love that.
So James was telling me you recently sold a few robots, if you will, to like a professional. What data are they looking for to get out of that to help their game?
So are we talking about one individual golfer, or are we talking about corporations here?
Probably one individual golfer, but if you don't want to talk about it, that's okay.
No. It's not official. It's not official, but let's just say that, it's official. He has it, but it hasn't been announced, but let's just say a very technical, prominent top golfer purchased a piece of my machinery. And here's why. This is kind of a misunderstood thing about robots, golf robots, is there's this expectation that all the robot does is like a drill press. It swings every time the same way, which is true. It's very repeatable. But when I designed it, and this is back when I was dumb as a box of rocks, but I figured this one out, and this was one of my lucky breaks. Callaway would come to me and say, "Hey, test this way." Cobra would come to me and say, "Test this way." And what I realized was there's no universal swing. And my competitor at the time when I started out was the Iron Byron. And so the Iron Byron would only swing one way. It was a great machine. It was designed in the late 50s, 60s, but it was driven by air and it would only swing one way. So what I set out as my design criteria was I wanted to have as much flexibility as possible in adjusting the machine. And what I came up with was a robot that can duplicate anyone's swing. I can duplicate your swing, my swing, and all I need is your gamer and your launch conditions, your delivery conditions. And once I get those, then I can program those in the machine. Now, once I program that in the machine, that's locked. So, as a fitter, sometimes someone can be standing there 50, 60, 70 hits. And if you're my age, your back starts getting sore after a certain amount of time. All I need is 5 or 6 of quote unquote your typical or your average shots. I put them in, dial that shot. Let's talk about what we were talking about. 2 degrees outside in, 2 degrees open, -2 AOA, low heel, miss. I put that in. Now I've locked it. Now all I do is switch heads out and see which head provides the greatest directional correction, distance correction, etc. That's on a amateur level. Tour players are doing the same thing. I'll read you a interesting quote. This is from TaylorMade. TaylorMade used my robot to here, I'll read the quote. Rory didn't switch to the QI 35 last year, and it was a big deal. And so TaylorMade wanted to get a jump start on it. So they said, fast forward to late October 2025, before the World Tour playoffs, TaylorMade's engineering team dialed in his launch and spin conditions on a robot. The robot was set up to mimic Rory's swings in hopes that when Rory himself took the first shot with the QI 4D, it would produce the exact same performance gains he was looking for. They and the robot were right. Rory averaged 2 miles an hour ball speed gains, 117 RPM spin deviation. So it was incredibly consistent. And he only missed the target twice. So this is coming from TaylorMade. So they used my robot, dialed in Rory's swing, and then with his gamer, and then found a QI4D that could equal or surpass what he was currently playing. And now Rory's playing. So that long-winded explanation is why a certain golfer owns my robot. What I found in working with tour players, number one, they don't want to hit their miss. No one wants to hit your miss, right? But your miss is 70% of how you're going to perform. What is your miss going to do? So with the robot, you can dial in the miss all day long. Robot doesn't care. You can find your quality shot and your miss shot, and then see. All this does, it's incremental as far as the technology and improvement. There's no longer massive leaps just because of the maturity of the industry. But what it does more than anything else is when they have a bad shot, they don't question the equipment. They just kind of like we talked about with the amateurs. It's the same thing with tour players. And so, so that's the reason that a certain individual has purchased a machine. That's the reason that I'm in the future most likely going to be offering these services. I mean, to give you an idea, I back in the day, Nike was a client of mine. All the golf balls that they would send to Tiger, they'd send to me first. I'd set up for Tiger's launch conditions, and then I would duplicate, find the top 3, and then they would take those balls and send them to Tiger to test before he put them into play. So I've been doing this for a long time. It's just technology is finally like catching up with it, and tour players, what they realize more than anything else is time is like platinum to them in 2 ways. Number one, because the demands on them. Number two, the wear on their bodies. They don't want to be standing out there grinding, hitting hundreds and hundreds of shots. And here's what I've learned working with some of the top tour players. They don't know necessarily when it's the club and when it's them. And they've got to hit so many shots before that starts forming in their mind's eye. That's something that I can shortcut and quickly go. When you hit it on the toe with this club, with your delivery conditions, the ball turns over or the ball doesn't turn over. And so when they see it, they're confident in it, and then they know that it was them and not the equipment.
If I do a driver fitting with an amateur, I don't know, again, 12 to 18 handicap, I can spend an hour with somebody and I can say, this driver is better for you, and we can review the data, which is part of my process. When we review the data, I can say, it's this head, it's this shaft, you picked up so much carry, your peak height and landing angle is optimized, and, what do you think? And this moment, and the guy goes, yeah, but I really wanted the other head because it looked and felt better. And I look at him, and it's an important part of the game. Look and feel is super important, but I fear that some people would get that data back and go, you know what? I'm still going to play what I think looks and feels and sounds better, and maybe they won't follow the data. So are you prepared, or I guess, are you prepared for that part of it when that kind of consumer end of it comes in?
Absolutely. So first off, the process that we're kind of discussing working on is giving 3 options, not 1. So hopefully it addresses that. But then kind of an extra layer to that is what I call the wild card option. So in other words, if I go, hey, TaylorMade, Callaway, and Cobra perform the best for you, and here's why. Here's the order. Here's the area. What's the most important to you? Distance, dispersion, total distance loss area. And you go, man, that's great, but I really am interested in that ping. Pop the ping on, hit the ping as well. And so all this is doing more than anything else is providing the golfer with information. And now I can find you the longest club, hands down. It's the lowest spinning, nastiest,
can I.
highest ball velocity.
But it's not the best for the golfer.
No.
Right. And this is the thing that I try and tell people all the time. Come and see me because we can talk about what your tendencies are, and we can talk about what is your optimal miss based off of, a question that I tell young fitters when I'm training them is, it's not just about what is this guy hitting the best, what gets the most ball speed, what goes the furthest, what's the lowest spin. That's not the right way to do it. We have to figure out what their attack angle is, what the ball speed is. We have to figure out what launch and spin do you actually need. And then there's the really important question that I think isn't asked enough. Where do you play? If you're a member at a course and you tell me that your most important tee shots don't go right, what are we doing buying the driver that spins the lowest that might go right?
Or are you playing in West Texas where the wind blows 40 miles an hour? Are you playing in Portland where carry is critical and you want to get the ball in the air as much as possible?
And that's funny because I was just out at Fields Ranch fitting, and then a week later I fit a kid who's going to school in Oregon. So the exact situations we were talking about, fit a driver, and these are exactly the situations you just described. So in Texas, it's firm, it's fast at Fields Ranch, and out in Oregon, it rains all the time, and it's windy as hell. So, I think that people need to pay attention to that in fittings instead of running into a demo bay and looking for, the lowest spinning, sexiest thing out there. That's not the way to do it.
Well, the challenge is this. Just from what you've described, you're a conscientious fitter. Here's the challenge for the consumer, unfortunately. And this is kind of ridiculous coming from me and what's on top of my head, but it's the salon base that you're only as good as your, weakest stylist. And the problem with a lot of golf, to be honest with you, and golf retail is you get those who are the rock stars, and then you get a lot of other people that work in golf that just want to work in golf for the lifestyle, not necessarily for the career. And so that's always been the challenge. And what do they do? And I don't want to lay all the blame on them, and I'll tell you why. Because, so here's my analogy. Golf is about chocolate cake and vegetables. Distance is chocolate cake. Vegetables is hitting fairways and greens. Now, everybody will tell you rationally that they need to eat more vegetables than chocolate.
So true.
But
when the chocolate cake is put in front of you, you know what you're not going to eat? The damn vegetables.
Exactly.
I know that because I've done about 900 a year for like almost a decade. And as many times as I tell people that, they still will eat the chocolate cake every time. And if I'm not looking, you still went and ate the chocolate cake.
Yeah, and here's
I know it because they come and they traded it.
And here's the thing, and I talked about this earlier. This is once again kind of the forest through the trees. If someone wants to play golf just for chocolate cake, let them play golf for chocolate cake. This is their entertainment. And we get so wrapped up in this industry about, kind of this purity of the game and fitting and the importance of things. And it's like, well, that's not good for you. You need your vegetables. Screw that. If somebody wants chocolate cake and they want to go out and eat it, let them eat the damn chocolate cake. And so the more important part is the kind of the psychological part. Hey, what are you looking to do with this piece of golf equipment?
Let me come back at you for 1 second then. I work in a shop where we sell the latest and greatest. I can build you almost anything. We also sell pre-owned stuff. My pre-owned stuff, what do you think it is? Is my pre-owned stuff vegetables or is it chocolate cake?
Well,
my pre-owned stuff is stale chocolate cake.
I get it. I mean,
No, I know what you're saying though. I mean, like that's tongue in cheek. Obviously, there's
Right.
situations where you go into a pre-owned golf shop and we have the latest and greatest, but we also, our pre-owned stuff is filled with amazing product. Like you get like a Ventus Velocore Black with a Ping G440 LST head. We already have it. We have the, Quantum stuff. We already have some pre-owned stuff for the Callaway Quantums that came out. We have everything, and we have it pretty quickly. So that's a great analogy. I once heard this. I once heard, like, you're not a good golf teacher unless you steal. So I'm stealing the vegetables and chocolate cake thing for myself. That's going in play tomorrow morning.
Feel free to. It's just I think the most important part as a fitter, and to be honest, as a teacher too, is just finding out the psychology of the person that's in front of you. What are they looking to get out of this game? If they're grinding and they really want to reach a single digit players understand it's all about vegetables. It is all about vegetables. And it's about healthy doses of vegetables, trying to shave half a stroke here off of their game. But that's not the bulk of golfers. The bulk of golfers, they just want to have fun, and every once in a while they want to just time it and really stripe it. And who cares if they knock 4 out of bounds? They can show off to their buddies the one that they hit in the fairway. And those are two just completely different people, but they're both on a golf course and neither are getting paid. They're both doing this for their recreational time. And I don't judge one versus another. It's just they're having different experiences on the same piece of property.
Wow. That's a great way of looking at it, because as a golfer who's trying to improve their game, I've, since put the driver away in certain scenarios and bring out, the 4-iron for a more controlled shot. That's just like, it's great hearing your perspective on that. Kind of change gears here, but I want to know, so from someone who's been in the industry for quite a long time, as you mentioned, what's still, or there's probably many things, but what excites you? What motivates you to keep improving on your product, on your skill set?
It's a really good question. We live in a time right now. So, my kind of corner of this industry is all about technology. And there's never been a greater time for technology in golf. And it's only going to get better in the next 4 or 5 years. And then AI is going to take over and I'm going to become my robot's caddy. So at least I'll have a job. While you guys are hunted underneath the bridge, I'll be on a golf course handing golf clubs to my robot. So I've already planned that one out. But no, it's an amazing time where you can get feedback on your swing from so many different devices and learn so much about your game. And if you want to geek out, and once again, most people don't, but if you want to geek out, you can have a system like Arcos that can measure everything about your game. You can have launch monitors. You can have devices on your wrist that can give you the angular velocity of your acceleration. It's an amazing time. What I am excited about for golf right now is moving towards a more mass market of personalization. We have custom fitting, but custom fitting is still only 15-20% of the marketplace. And the reason for that, my theory, a little bit of it is cost, a little bit of it is time, but the major factor that I see is intimidation. Who should you see the most if you suck at golf? Someone who could help you. That's who you want to see the least, because you don't want to make a fool out of yourself.
I have questions about that.
Yeah, well, let me just finish this.
Yeah.
So, it's the same reason when my kids were younger, I didn't go ice skating. Dad sat in the stands because he didn't want to look like a jackass. I already did that in my 20s and my 30s. I didn't go roller skating with my kids. I watched them, rooted them on, but I didn't do that because I didn't want to be embarrassed. Unfortunately, that's golf for a lot of people. And you become very self-conscious when you're taking a lesson or you're getting fit, and you just don't want to look stupid topping 10 balls in a row. So therefore, they don't do that. And then by not doing that, they miss out on the benefits of a lesson or a fitting. And so with technology, I see as kind of the next frontier is a way in which technology is impersonal, but it will allow golfers that aren't very good to work with a device, not a human, and hopefully make gains that they wouldn't do otherwise.
Ow, that hurts. God.
Hey, it's just human psychology, baby.
It's true, but here's the thing. Once you do come in, and here's the advantage that I have over the technology, and the technology is, of course, I don't know if it's infallible, but it's obviously getting very good. It's that when I make my connection with you and you realize that I'm not like who am I? Like I'm the dude who woke up in the morning, like maybe I woke up like 10 minutes late and I've got mismatched socks and I run into work with my Dunkin' iced coffee and people come in and I see them and I do a lot of fittings. And so they come in and I see the nerves from people, and I see nerves from like grown men. Like, you know, I'm in my mid 30s. I see guys that come in, they're like 45 years old. They're older than me, and they're like over the ball, and they're like, I'm a little scared. I haven't hit balls in a little bit. And I'm like, what are you scared about? Who am I? Like, this isn't the first tee at the Masters. You know what I mean? Like I'm a guy who's here. I'm trying to help you, and I don't work on commission. And it doesn't matter what you buy or even that you buy. What matters most to me is that you leave. Number one, you leave happy because, like you said earlier, this is entertainment. Number two, you leave as a better golfer because if you don't, then maybe I've done something wrong, and I don't ever want to have that happen. And number three, we all have these first tee jitters. I don't want to say everybody because some of us totally don't, but most of us do. I would like you to realize that if you care enough about going in front of somebody and hitting golf balls and being nervous, why don't we think about those nerves? Why don't we channel that into something positive? Why don't we realize that this is something you might care about? And instead we can kind of channel that into a good swing and go, you know, I really care about this. There's somewhere where you can put that. That might be a little off, but there's something to it. And so I think that's good stuff, but I don't know that I'll be replaced anytime soon. But I love where your mind is at, where the technology, we are in an incredible place, even from when I started in my career. This is an amazing place to be with the new stuff. I know we talked a little bit about TrackMan at the PGA show, but you know, some of their biometrics data, whether you're a TrackMan person or a GC Quad person, that's fine. But we're at a point now where we can learn so much about the golf swing, like information that as a fitter, I think I'm responsible to pull the curtain back as far as you need to see. I don't think I need to pull the curtain all the way back for everybody, but you know, I think that's all part of it.
Let me kind of recap what you said, and I agree with everything that you said. I believe probably it won't be until about 10 years. It just depends on how sophisticated AI is. The personal connection is still critical from a fitter teacher perspective versus a client golfer perspective. And if you are passionate and good at what you do, that connection will be something that will be longer than a simple transaction, that will develop into a relationship. But what I see with the technology is that still is only 15, 20% of the business. You have 80% of the business in which people just simply, as I said, getting over that barrier of intimidation. And it's got nothing to do with the individual. It's got everything to do with the golfer. You just you don't want to be self-conscious or you don't want to look foolish. I think that's where technology will thrive, in being able to provide a tool to allow them. I'm not going to even go as far as to say a better golfer have a more enjoyable golf experience. And that's, some people just suck at this game, and they're going to continue sucking at this game because they're just not that coordinated, and that's okay. But as long as you have,
I'm a can-do person. I don't like that.
as long as you have an more enjoyable experience, I think that the industry has done a good job. And also that you stick with the game. As many people usually quit the game every year as take it up. And I think it's all these barriers to entry. And that's what I'm excited about technology, is possibly knocking down a few of those barriers and making the game more accessible and allowing more enjoyment. And that's all we're looking for.
I have a real quick, and I probably will edit this out. This is actually more of a me question. So I work as a fitter in the industry, obviously. And you said, what percentage of golfers are fit?
It's really hard. It used to be 15 to 20%. That was kind of a hard number. Now, to be honest, it might be a lot lower than that, because the number. Well, but I'll tell you why.
Right.
The number of golfers has expanded. Like, that was a number when golfers were at 24 million. Now golfers are at 35 million, but that includes a lot of golfers, such as people that play at Top Golf or played in a simulator. So, I mean, the numbers are really kind of loose now. But back when it was about 24 million, I saw something from the National Golf Foundation that said that about 15 to 20% of golfers get fit.
James was also telling me you have some pretty good stories, but I have a more specific question pertains to your experiments with your robot or anything. But any sort of what is your most fun, or have you ever done wild or fun experiments?
Yeah, we've done quite a few. Do you watch TGL at all?
I do, actually, yes.
That new this year, that overhang, that desert rock that they've got to hit the stinger.
Yes.
I was the first one that hit that. TGL bought a robot from me, and they're
no way.
Yeah, and they're like, to dial in the system, and they go, can you clear this? And I was like, how far out is it? And they're like, 230, 240 yards. I'm like, how high? And they're like 12 feet. I'm like, hold my beer. So I took an 8-degree lofted driver and turned it down to about a 3-degree lofted driver and hit a stinger. I actually hit a shot that none of the tour players have been able to hit. It's a really hard shot, but I was able to hit it that I almost rolled it up on the green, because I was swinging it at like 109, 110 miles an hour. And I launched it at 3 degrees, and I hit it kind of high on the face, so it had no spin. Because the problem with that shot, which I found, was you could launch it at 2 degrees on the lower part of the face, but the backspin would be enough that when it got to 230 yards, it would lift and hit the top of that, or the bottom of that rock foundation. So I figured out this combination of 3-degree launch high on the face, and it was just this nasty stinger that went right through that slot and would roll right to the front of the green. So yeah, I was the first one to ever hit that shot. I didn't hit it, but my robot hit it on TGL. I also had a cool one. This is years. I've had a lot of interesting ones. But we had one where we brought out a crash test dummy from Golf Digest, and we tried to hit it in all these different spots. Like, if a pro snap hooked one off of the tee right into someone's temple, could it kill them? Answer, yes. And so it was a crash test dummy from Detroit, and we set it up in all these wacky ways. But yeah, I've done all kinds of bizarre stuff. I competed against Steph Curry in Holy Moly, this reality show for ABC, and it was kind of funny.
That was you? I watched that.
Yeah. And so the first season, and it was kind of funny because there were 10 contestants and they either could choose the robot, which is the most accurate thing on the planet, or Steph Curry, who's a good golfer, but he's not a professional golfer. 9 out of 10 chose Steph because they were standing there. And the one guy who chose me ended up winning that round because I stuck it to within 2 feet. So.
Oh my gosh. Speaking of crazy, I have one more story. I want to ask about one more story. How about something that happened on an airplane? Are we going to get into this?
Yeah. Unfortunately, this one's going down on my obituary, but believe it or not, it's a golf related story. In 2020, the height of the pandemic, June of 2020, I got contacted by Seoul Broadcasting Company. And they said, we want you to bring your robot to Korea to compete against Sae-Ri Pak. And you got to remember at the time, Korea was the second most locked down country on the planet for COVID. And so I'm looking at this and I'm like, this isn't going to work. So I said, hey, how about if you guys come to San Diego? We can make this happen. And they said, nope, it's got to be Korea. So I threw out a stupid number and they said, we'll see you in 2 months. And I went, oh my goodness. I had no idea what I was getting into. So I air freighted my robot out, flew out to Korea. I've been to Korea, I don't know, 20 times, flown into Seoul International Airport, Incheon many times. Never seen it like this. It was like 5% full. It took me 2 hours to get out of the airport going through all the health things. They then sent me to a quarantine facility, and I actually had it in my contract that if I tested positive for COVID, they were going to pay me $3,000 a day for the 21 days while I sat there. Little did I know I was probably going to be in some military hospital, which would have really sucked. But so get through that, have the competition. It's insane. Sae-Ri Pak is like the Michael Jordan of Korea, because when she won the U.S. Women's Open, Korea was going through some difficult times, and she's just considered this inspiration. She's just like a sports god over there. So we had 3 challenges: long drive, closest to the pin, and a putting challenge. We kind of gave her the long drive because we set it up for an LPGA. I mean, to give you an idea, the robot can swing 130 miles an hour, so that wouldn't have really been fair. That wouldn't have been fair. So we set it up for 95 miles an hour LPGA speed. She beat us by a couple yards. Then we stuck one 2 feet from the pin on a 150-yard par 3. We won that one. And then this one kind of surprised me because I didn't have a lot of experience. The robot putts, and I hit like a 15-foot slider, left to right downhill slider, to beat her, to win this robot versus human competition. So that should have been the story right there in and of itself. Like, that was pretty cool. That was pretty exciting. That's not the story. So the story is, I'm flying back the next day, Seoul to Seattle, and now the plane was like 10% full coming over. Now it's about maybe half full, quarter to half full. And I'm up in business class. I'm like 2 seats from the front of the airplane where the main door is. And I hadn't had anything to drink or anything all week because I was so laser focused on this. And I was like, man, I can't believe I just survived that in COVID. So I'm like, I'm going to treat this like my own personal nightclub. So I just whooped it up on the flight home. It's like a 12-hour flight home. And I'm just drinking like a sailor on leave, so happy that I survived this. I'm in my little pod. Now I got to paint a picture of the flight attendants. This is the height of COVID. They're wearing like CDC hazmat suits. They got the N95 masks on and then the shields. They're these little girls. And And so I think I got cut off after like my fourth or fifth drink. They're like, no more for you, sir. And I was like, okay, night night. So I curl up and I go to sleep. I wake up about an hour and a half outside of Seoul. I had the map on. And I remember thinking to myself, man, I am really hungover. I am really dehydrated. I am really sleep deprived, and I really need to brush my teeth. Like, that was the state that I was in. But I was like, but I'm almost home. So gonna make it. Right about this time, so I'm on the left-hand side of the plane. On the right-hand side of the plane, walking up, I hear this guy screaming. And I look, and out of the corner of my eye, I just see him for a sec, and he just disappears. And I'm like, did I see that right? You know, and now, like, there's the bulkhead, you know, and then there's, you know, where they prepare the food and everything like that. And then there's the pilots, the little corridor of the pilots, and I can hear screaming, and I can hear it in Korean, but I don't know what it is. So now I'm up on the edge of my seat, and I'm like, my brain is so fuzzy, and I'm like, what is going on? I didn't find out until 2 weeks later when the federal indictment came out. This guy walked up, said he had a bomb, and made all the flight attendants get on their knees and said he was going to kill them one by one until they opened the cockpit door. So one of the flight attendants breaks free and comes running up to me.
Get the drunk guy.
Yeah. Yeah. The guy she cut off, which is really kind of funny. So I got to paint a picture of Asian flight attendants. Asian flight attendants, and this extends across, I've flown to Asia many, many times. This extends across all airlines. They fire them if they're over 25 or if they weigh more than 100 pounds. They're basically models serving you drinks, which I appreciated up until this very moment when I could have used a few United battle axes in my corner. She runs up to me and she goes, "Sir, I need your help. It's an emergency." And I'm like, all right. So I pop the seatbelt. I get up. I just have no idea what I walk like 10 steps, and all of a sudden there's this guy with his hand on the cockpit door, and he's trying to rip the door open, and he's beating on the door with his other hand. And, you know, we've all had this, like, what would you do 9/11 moment. Unfortunately, I got to live mine. So I see the guy, and you got to understand, I went from, like I said, probably still slightly inebriated to in a pure insane situation in like 3 seconds. And all of a sudden I see the guy, and I just instinctually grab him to pull him away from the door. And as I pull him away, he turns and punches me right in the throat, just clocks me right. And it's on. We're in a full-on brawl at 36,000 feet. Now, full disclosure, I haven't been in a fight since the 9th grade, so this isn't what I do for a living. And so I am fighting for I'm fighting for my life, literally. And this is the part of the story. I don't know if this went on for 10 seconds or 2 minutes. I honestly, I kind of blacked out on this. All I remember is just punching him. I remember at one point grabbing his hair and slamming it against the door of the cockpit. And somehow or another, I got him out of that little area, and now we're by the main door. We're still fighting, but somehow or another, I got him out. I have no idea how. And now I'm like, I got to get this guy on the ground. So I'm going in trying to grab him, but every time I do, he's jamming me in the face. And, you know, I'm 6 feet tall, 215 pounds. I'm not a small guy. And this guy is working me. And I go in, and every time I hit him, it feels like I'm hitting steel. I mean, he's it was insane. So I go in to grab him one time. and both of my arms start getting pulled from behind. And I'm suddenly going directly backwards. And I break free with my right arm. And there's this middle-aged Korean guy holding onto my left arm. I go to punch this guy right in the face because I am in full survival mode.
Yeah.
And the guy goes, Sir, no violence, no violence. And I look at him and I go, we're way fucking past no violence at this point. Now, in their defense, these were 2 Korean Air captains deadheading to Seattle. They're wearing civilian clothes. They hear this melee. They wake up and see this big, bald white guy waving.
They thought,
they don't know what's going on.
They don't know that you're the good guy.
Yeah, they don't know. So they're screaming at me. I'm screaming at them. The 5 flight attendants are screaming. And the guy that I was fighting screaming. We have like 9 people in this space that's like 10 by 5. And it's madness. It's pure bedlam. And in the middle of this, the Korean guy in perfect English goes, hold on. And everybody stops. And we turn to him. And you got to understand, I'm like this close to the guy because I was just punching him like 4 seconds earlier. And he goes, I will not speak to the Koreans. I will only speak to you. And he points right at me. He goes, because you're an American and I trust you. And I looked in the guy's eyes and I realized I was like, oh my God. Like he brought the temperature down just enough. I was like, I am having a fight on an airplane with someone who was having a psychotic meltdown. Like I could tell, and like there wasn't anybody there. And I'm going, this is way above my pay grade. Like before that, I was just, everything was just reacting. And all of a sudden I was there and I got scared. I got really scared. And the reason I realized he hurt so much when I was hitting him, he was so amped out of his mind. Like he found out later he was bipolar and he had a complete psychotic meltdown. So I'm like, now I'm like, okay, I got to de-escalate this situation. So I go, you trust me, right? He said, I trust you. And I said, okay, follow me. Let's go sit and talk about this. And he said, you first. So I started walking backwards. Everybody else is stunned now, right? Because, everybody's watching this. And he starts walking towards me. We get right to the business class seats and he bolts. He takes off running, runs around and starts running down the other side. I start trailing him to like catch him at the next intersection. This poor flight attendant bravely tried to stop him. He hit her like a linebacker hitting a middle school kid. She goes flying through the air. I heard her head crack when it landed. The other flight attendant trailing him screams when this happens. He turns. She shoots him point blank in the face with a taser. He gets 2 like tasers, and then she's like trying to electrocute him with tasers. I learned something about tasers in this incident. If you're going to taser somebody, do it in the belly. That's where it conducts electricity, not the chin. He knocks her over the business class seat. She lands at my feet, and he starts heading back to the cockpit. I run around, tackle him again. But now the 2 captains are trailing and they tackle him as well. And all 4 of us are wrestling in the foothold of a business class seat. I mean, it is pure pandemonium. And 3 of the flight attendants are tasering him now in the leg and the abdomen. And it feels like I have my hand stuck in a light socket that I'm getting electrocuted. Yeah. Took us 10 minutes to contain this guy. They brought out giant zip ties and we zip tied his legs together and we could only get one arm down. He was it was literally like, I'm guessing this is what it's like to wrestle a calf or something. He was so insanely strong and fighting. We finally got him subdued and he'd been electrocuted for like the last 5 minutes along with us. And then I had to sit on him for the next hour until we landed.
Oh my God.
So here's the funny parts of the story. So I get to know these captains pretty well.
I would assume, yeah.
We're like 6 inches apart sitting on this dude for an hour. And I'm like, can you open the door? I've always wondered that. And they're like, no, it's pressurized. There's no way you could physically open the door. I'm like,
can we throw this guy out?
And so we're just about to land. And the same flight attendant who came and asked me for my help, she comes up and she goes, excuse me, sir. You're going to need to take your seat and put your seatbelt on. And the two captains are like, no. And I go, you know what? I think I'm going to sit on him until we land just to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're taxiing to the gate and she gets on the horn again and she goes, I'd like to thank you for flying Korean Air. I hope you had a nice night. Like nothing happened. And I go to the two captains. I go, hey, I don't mean to tell you how to do your job, but it's my guess there's going to be a lot of law enforcement on this plane, and you might want to tell everybody to stay in their seats. And they're like, that's a really good idea. And I'm going, why am I the captain on this ship of fools? So we get in. The paramedics were the first because he was pretty messed up. Airport PD, Seattle PD, Homeland Security, and the FBI. I was on that plane for an hour and a half. And here was the funny part. So I get iced, and I don't know what's going on. I'm kind of freaking out right now because I just beat someone up on an airplane. And it's like, I know I was in the right, but I'm also a little hungover, and I'm paranoid. And I'm like, did this just happen? And I got like major law enforcement interviewing me. So, they're basically asking me for my statement and everything like that. And every single one of them afterwards, when they finish, they're like, so you law enforcement? I'm like, no, man, I test golf balls for a living.
That's good.
I have an FBI agent walk me to my next flight. Almost missed my flight, Seattle to San Diego. I'm on an American Airlines. I'm flying down. This is 2020 when all the wildfires were happening on the West Coast. It was like it just seemed like the end of the world. And now I'm crashing, man. It's been like an hour and a half, 2 hours. I'm about to throw up. I mean, my adrenaline, and I am just cut up. I'm a hot mess. And so I go to put my phone away, or my phone cord away, and there's this like hand on my shoulder. And I turn, and it's this flight attendant. She goes, sir, you can't get up. The seatbelt sign's on. And I said, ma'am, I'm really sorry. I said, I was just trying to put my charger away. She leans in. We're wearing masks, and everything. And she leans in. She goes, it's okay, honey. She goes, it's not like I thought you were going to charge the cabin or anything. And I turned to her and I go, can I tell you a story? And she's like, and I start telling her the story, and her eyes got so big. And I'm like leaning over because I'm bigger than she is, that the other flight attendants thought I was like harassing her, and they come running up to help her, and she's like waving them away. And she goes, oh my God, honey. She's like, other than a couple dead bodies, I've never dealt with anything like that. She goes, when did that happen? Like 6 months ago? I go, more like 3 hours ago. And she's like, oh, you need another drink. So the next day, the Seattle Times, I believe, picked it up, and then the New York Post picked it up, and then Golf Digest, my buddy who was a writer there, picked it up, and it started like spreading nationally. Thankfully, Trump got COVID at the same time, so it knocked it off the it knocked it off the national press. But the funny postscript to it was I got 6 LinkedIn messages, and I'm not making this up, 6 LinkedIn messages by women just wanting to let me know that they felt safer knowing that I was flying in the skies.
Oh my God.
I felt like the death row inmate getting marriage proposals, and I was like, thank you.
That is
so anyways,
crazy story.
If you ever want an uneventful flight, fly with me, because the chances of that happening twice aren't very great.
That is nuts. From garage door springs to learning physics we didn't want to learn. You've been forced through everything. Thwarting terrorist attacks. So real quick, when we were down in Orlando, Boyle, he goes and he's like, listen, he's like, my buddy Gene is the most interesting guy you've never met. And I'm like, Boyle, I've met everybody. Who's Gene? And he's like, no, I'm telling you, Gene's got a story that's going to knock your socks off. Try and get him on the pod. And I'm like, but you got to give me something. He goes, he thwarted a terrorist attack. And I was like, what? We had such a laugh over that at dinner. I refused to Google it. So I've talked to a couple people about you, and they're like, you know what he did on a plane? And I'm like, no, don't tell me. Don't tell me. So I waited for that whole time, since like whenever we were there in January to right now, I waited. That's amazing. Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah, for some reason when I was born, the gods decided this one shall not have a boring life, and really followed suit. So yeah, that one I did not have on my bingo card. Let's just put it that way.
The last thing, I do want to thank you, because I do have to run and go do a club fitting. Thank you so much. I cannot tell you how much I've learned and how much I love to hear your stories. And it's a privilege for me, as being not as far down the road in the industry as you, to hear you talk and hear your stories and hear your insights. So thank you.
It's my pleasure. It's a pleasure spending time with you guys.